In this video, I'm going to show you how to input strings of text, and how to input numbers into a Python program. So let's open up a Python shell, and once we're in there, let's open up a new file. So file, new file, and let's save this file as, now I'm going to save to the desktop on my computer. So I'm going to call it input dot py. So it's input.py and save. And you can see the path here at the top to your file. Now, the input is performed by using the input built-in function. Now, if you want to learn more about the input built-in function, you can go to my homepage andawesome.net, and in the site search box, type input and site search, and the first link at the top here, well, the second link, this is an ad, this one here explains about input. So I'd recommend that you go and read this, but for now I am going to go into Python, into my Python window, and give you an example. Okay, so the input function works differently in Python 2 and Python 3. Now we are using Python 3. You can see the version of Python 3 I'm using here. So there are differences between Python 2 and Python 3. So if you're watching this but you're using Python 2, I'd stop here and go to look at how you input using Python 2. So for Python 3 students, this is how the input function works. Say we want to input a person's first name. So we could do something like this. Now we are going to use the input function, but I'm going to put I'm going to type the name of the variable we're going to use. So let's have first name. I'm going to put the assignment operator, and then I'm going to use the built-in function input. Notice how it comes out in purple in the idle editor. Then you put your first opening parentheses, and in quote marks you're going to type in the text that you want somebody to see to prompt them to input whatever you require them to input. So I'm going to say, please input your first name, and I'll put a colon and a space before I put the ending quote mark and the ending parenthesis. This space will just make it neater. When they type in their name, there will be a space before they type in their name, which is quite useful to make it a little clearer. Now, when I press enter, I'm going to print you typed in colon space, and then I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to put the variable first name. Okay, so let's see this run. So just to remind you, when we have an assignment, assignments always assign a value to a variable. Now the variable is always shown on the left of the assignment operator. Now, when this expression is going to run in Python, this part is going to be done first, and in this part the user is going to input their name. Once that has been input, then whatever is input is then assigned to the variable first name, after which first name contains whatever they've typed in, and then we can use that variable to in any other expression. So here I'm going to print out the variable. So let's run, see what happens. So Anne is the first name. I press enter and it says you typed in Anne. Okay. So just look here, there is a space here. That space is shown there. So spaces will be printed in part of the string for the prompt. Okay, so that's good. Now, I just want to remind you that when you use input, the result of input is a string which is then assigned to a variable. Now, just to show you that this variable is of data type string, I'm going to print the type of first name. Notice I've got two brackets here. That's because I've got, oh, and I spelled it wrong there. You have two brackets here and they have two brackets here. Type is a function, as you can see it's in purple, and what type is going to do is going to return to you the data type or the class of the variable or value that you put in the brackets for type. So here it's going to look at first name, determine what data type it is or what class it is, such as a string or an integer or a floating point number. And then in this case it's going to print the type of that variable. So let's see what happens. So I type in Anne, it says you typed in Anne. Now it's telling me that the class of this variable first name is a string. So now let's enter a number. Let's say I'm going to copy this line. Actually, I'll copy all three and just change the variable. So I'm going to copy these three lines, paste. And let's say please input your age this time. So we're going to enter a number and I'm going to change this variable to age and then change this variable to age and then change this variable to age. Now I've changed my program. You can see the little star, that means it's changed but not been saved. So I'm going to save. Make sure I save. And there we have the program saved. Now what's going to happen is first I'm going to input my name. That name will then be assigned to the first name variable. And then I'm going to print out the first name. And then I'm going to print out the data type or the class of the first name. And this will be string. String is just text. And then I'm going to enter age. So the age will then be assigned to the age variable. And then I'm going to print you typed in. Then it will print out whatever value I entered. And then I'm going to print the data type of age. So let's run this. So I'm going to enter Anne. I'm going to enter 21. And it types, it outputs, please input your first name. I typed in Anne. Notice my input is shown in black. You typed in Anne. And it tells me the data type or class is string. Then I type in my age, 21. It says you typed in 21. And the data type is still string. But it's a number. Yet it's telling me it's a string. Now this is a very important point, and it's something that confuses all students, all beginning students in Python. When you input a number, if you want it to be used as a number, then you must convert your input, which is a string, into a number. So if you're inputting an age, and you may be wanting to use the age as a number so that you can do calculations later on, then you must convert your string into an integer. So let's do that. I'm going to say that age is assigned int age. Now what this is doing, again, when we have an expression which is an assignment, this part is done first and then the result is assigned to the variable on the left. So an assignment operation works from the right hand side and then is assigned to the left hand side, and that's very important to remember. This symbol does not mean equal. It means assign the value on the right to the variable on the left. Don't confuse this with the equal. When you speak this, if you're speaking this line of code, you would say that the integer version of age is assigned to the age variable. So it's working from right to left. This is an assignment. So now, once we've changed the age variable into an integer, then I can print the type of age again, and I'll be able to see that age is now an integer. Its class or its data type is an integer. Let's try this again. I forgot to save, so I'll save now. So I'm going to enter my name. I'm going to enter my age. I wish. And now you can see that age started out as a string, but then I converted it to an integer. Now, this is very important because if you want to do calculations, your variable has to be an integer. So let's say, for example, I'm going to multiply my age by 2. So let's do that. I'm going to say print, let's do that again, print age, oh, let's put that in quotes. Ooh, I've got a pint there. Print, not doing well this morning, print your age multiplied by 2 is age multiplied by 2. Right, now let's see what happens here. Now let's see what happens here when age is a string, and then let's see what happens here when age is an integer. So let's put this down. I'll just move and paste down here. Right, so let's run this, see what it does. Now, when we use input and input the age originally is a string. Now you may be surprised to know that you can actually multiply strings together. So let's see what happens. I'm going to put it in a clean shell here, and then it's we'll see it a bit better. Let's move that up there. Right, here is our program running. So let's type in my first name. So it types in Anne. It says you typed in Anne. The name, the first name variable is, so here we are, is printing out the data type of the first name variable as a string. Now it wants my age, so let's put in a different number now. Let's put in 33. Okay, so now it says you typed in 33. Your age multiplied by 2 is 3333. Now, when we typed in the age firstly, age was a string, and the data type of age was a string before we converted it into an integer. Now, if you multiply a string, it will take the string, and then in the case where you multiply by 2, it will double the string. So if the string was 33, if you multiply by 2, it becomes 3333. However, if your age is converted to an integer, then when you multiply an integer by 2, if your integer was 33, then if you multiply by 2, you get 66. So I'm doing the same line here. This is the same statement, but because here age is a string, it gives you a different output to when age is an integer. So you can multiply strings, but if you multiply a string, it will take the string, and if you multiply by 2, it will simply double the string. if the age is an integer and you multiply by 2, then you will get the actual value of the number multiplied by 2, which in this case is 66. So this little program is showing you how to input strings, and then if you want to input a number, how to convert that string into an integer and then return the value, assign the value back to the same variable. Now if you wanted to enter a floating point number, then you could, instead of int, just put float. Now there is a quicker way to enter on one line, if instead of doing the input and then convert the input to an integer. Let's, for example, we want to enter a temperature. Let's say temperature. Say we want a temperature as a floating point number. We can do it in one step, like this. Float input and please enter the temperature. So in this case we've got an assignment statement. Now when you have a function which is inside of another function, the inner expression is done first. So the first thing that's going to happen is going to ask you to enter a temperature. Now when we use input, as we know, it will enter a string. That string result is then going to be converted into a floating point number, and the whole thing then is going to be assigned to temperature. So in this case, temperature will receive a floating point number. So let's see that happen, and let's just copy this line to save some typing. Oh, let's undo that and try again. So I'm going to copy the line, paste it here, and I'm going to change the name of age to temperature, and then let's look at the data type of temperature after we've printed the temperature. So I'm a great fan of copy and paste. Right, so this time I'm going to enter a floating point number. I want a floating point number. A floating point number is one that has a decimal point, like 25.2. So just to remind you, this statement is going to allow me to input, and I'm going to, the prompt will say please enter the temperature. Now because input is contained inside of another function, it will be done first. So the inner expressions will be done before the outer expressions. So the first thing that happens, it's going to prompt me to enter a temperature. When I enter that temperature, it will be a string. The resulting string will then be converted to a floating point number, and that floating point number will be assigned to the temperature variable. Then I'm going to print out the temperature variable, and then I'll print the data type of that variable. In this case, the data type or class will be a floating point number. So let's run this. I'll close the old shell. Run. So let's have Anne. My age is 21. And there we go. So it enters, I enter my name, types out my name, tells me that this is a string. When I enter my age, it tells me this is the age I entered. And because age was a string here, when we multiply the string by 2, this is the result. We converted my age into an integer and print out its data type or class, which is now an integer. So when we multiply 21 by 2, if 21 is a number, the result will be 42. Now it wants the temperature. Let's put 25.2, and it tells me I typed in 25.2. Now this time, because I used float input, it is a floating point number. The class or the data type is a float. Now here I've got my temperature. The word temperature is running into my input. That's why we put a colon and a space to make it look pretty. So let's run again and try a different age this time. Let's have Anne, 33. Now I'm entering the temperature. There's a nice space here, so let's put 25.8 this time. And it's telling me that this is a floating point, or the class or data type of this value is a float. Okay, so there we've done input of strings, input of numbers, integer and floating point numbers. And at that point I'll end this short video.